All right, guys. I up here late Saturday night. Of course, everybody heard the news, sad news of the passing of Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the great middleweight champion of the 1980s from 1980 to 1987. He was the undisputed middleweight champion of the world, winning titles with the WBA, WBC, and the Ring Magazine Unified Middleweight Championship from Alan Minter in September of 1980. Interesting enough about that fight, most people don't know, was that Alan Minter, before the fight, actually said that no black man would ever take his crown. Well, Marvin Hagler beat him within 3 rounds of the fight, which took place in the UK. And they actually threw beer bottles inside the ring when Marvin Hagler was fighting Alan Minter up there. They had obviously a lot of hatred for your Marvin Hagler and when he went up there to fight, and for black men, because boxing has always been, I noticed, a racial sport. We go back to the days of Jack Johnson. When you look at what happened with him, the great white hope that they looked for when he was boxing and beating all of these white boys like Jim Jeffries and Tommy Burns and men like that. So, Marvelous Marvin Hagler was a guy who was not really given the proper respect that he was due in the sport of boxing at that time. He was overshadowed by Sugar Ray Leonard, who was the darling of the sport. And, his best fight that he had was against Thomas Hitman Hearns in 1985. So I remember actually watching just replays of that fight. I started looking at the old replays of it, and that was just brutal. Something that you don't see today in boxing, where men are throwing power punches for 9 minutes straight. Every punch that Tommy Hearns threw and every punch Marvin Hagler threw, they threw with bad intentions on it. They were not pity pat punches. So those days of boxing really don't exist that much, and especially when you're talking about having four champions like Sugar Ray Leonard, Manos de Piedra, Roberto Duran, the Hands of Stone, Thomas Hitman Hearns out of Detroit, Michigan, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, who was from Brockton, Massachusetts, which was the home of Rocky Marciano. He was trained by the Petronelli brothers, and for 7 years, he dominated the middleweight world. And of course, he retired after that Sugar Ray Leonard fight in 1987, which is still controversial to this day because there's been debate about who really won that fight. Leonard, they say, well, Leonard did land more punches, but those punches, in truthfulness, were not effective. They were just flashy, and Leonard would throw them in the last 20 seconds of the fight. My dad always talks about that all the time. So I'm saddened by Mr. Hagler's passing. I have a lot of fond memories as a kid going to my grandfather's house, talking about the sport of boxing, watching boxing films, and watching fights that my grandfather would usually record. This is my dad's dad, and going to his house, especially when there was a pay-per-view, we always watched the boxing event. So I have nothing but fond memories of that, and Marvin Hagler was a part of that. And that golden age of boxing is really over with because you don't have boxers who had the personalities of a Sugar Ray Leonard or a Marvelous Marvin Hagler or even a Roberto Duran. Those men's names struck fear into their opponents. That was a time when boxing was played, on not only cable network with HBO, which was just starting out, but at a time when it was still popular in mainstream America, where it was growing, especially after Muhammad Ali had retired. Sugar Ray Leonard took over. And, Hagler, he always felt like he was outside of Ray Leonard's arena, out of his aura, because he wasn't respected by a lot of people. And he would let people know this. In fact, his legal name is Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He changed it legally because he was frustrated with how he was being treated and he wanted respect, and he always commanded that. He always wanted people to respect him. Even Sugar Ray Leonard acknowledged that he was a hurt individual over that. Because he was passed over. Even one of his first fights, he clearly beat this guy for a championship. One of his major fights he had on an undercard, and it was undercard of a Sugar Ray Leonard fight actually, and he ended up losing or getting a draw rather in that fight when he clearly won, even to the point where the referee was about to raise his hand and told him, "Get ready, I'm about to raise your hand as the victor." Well, he ended up getting a tie in that match, and he realized at that point, he said, "I can't leave it up to the judges. I got to leave it up with these," and he sure as hell didn't. He sure as hell did. He did not leave it up to the judges. He looked to knock guys out. But I just thinking of Mr. Hagler and the work that he put in. I'm a boxing fan, so shout out to your Marvelous Marvin Hagler and his family. May he rest in power. May he rest in peace. My condolences to his 5 children, to his wife, and his family and friends who knew him well. He certainly has my respect, and the world of boxing is a sad world tonight. The world of boxing is a different world without him. So may he rest in peace and power. And that's just my thoughts on Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Guys, that's been it for me. Why don't you tune in tomorrow? Or actually, it'll be later today when I have Garland Brown and Albert Lanier come on my platform as we're talking about some celebrity deaths. But you guys stay tuned and be safe and be blessed, guys. You never know when tomorrow or today, rather, may be your last. So always tell someone that you love them. If you truly love someone, you let them know and you tell them before it's too late. That's it. Thanks.